The transmission had come in the dead of night, its origins unknown. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a distortion, a random blip in the vast, quiet stretches of space. But then came the words, fractured and distorted by cosmic interference. The power of humanity is awakening. The galaxy has underestimated them for eons, and now, the reckoning begins. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the universe's most advanced and influential species, had long dismissed humanity as insignificant, a young primitive species barely scraping by in the shadow of the older, more technologically superior races. Earth's planet, too distant and undeveloped to warrant attention, was just another forgotten dot on the map of the cosmos. But as the transmission looped again, a ripple of unease passed through the council chambers. The lead translator, an insectoid from the planet Krenner, who had decades of experience decoding alien signals, analyzed the frequency. Something about the transmission was different. It wasn't a signal meant for just one species. It was a warning, universal in its implications. The message didn't mention specific threats or enemies, but it was unmistakable in its tone. Humanity was about to reveal its power. The galactic powers were quick to dismiss the broadcast as a fluke, something that was either a prank or an error. However, there was a single alien race, an ancient, mysterious species known as the Zoreth, who had a different perspective. For eons, they had studied the universe's most powerful civilizations, cataloging their rise and fall, all while keeping their distance. The Zoreth had always been among the most secretive of races, but now they could no longer stay in the shadows. Their leader, an enigmatic being named Naxri, convened an emergency council of their own. The Zoreth had watched humanity for centuries, and they knew something that no one else did. Humans weren't the meek, defenseless species the universe had presumed them to be. There was an ancient force within them, dormant and waiting for the right moment to awaken. The time was now. Humanity was beginning to access something that had been locked away deep within their DNA, something that had the potential to change the galaxy forever. "Prepare the ships," Naxri ordered, his voice as cold and calculating as the void of space itself. "The time of ignorance is over. Humanity is awakening." Back on Earth, no one knew the storm that was gathering. Humanity, blissfully unaware of their cosmic significance, was about to be thrust into a galactic game that would reshape everything they thought they knew about themselves. And the consequences of this awakening were about to come crashing down on them from the stars. The discovery came unexpectedly. Deep within a remote human colony on the fringes of known space, a team of archaeologists unearthed a series of artifacts buried beneath a vast, ancient mountain range, an area long thought to be a mere geological formation. At first, the relic seemed unremarkable. Tools, ceremonial objects, and strange markings that appeared to be of no known origin. But as the team dug deeper, the true nature of their find began to reveal itself. Dr. Emma Carter, the lead archaeologist, was the first to notice the subtle, almost imperceptible hum emanating from one of the larger objects, a jagged, crystalline structure embedded in the rock. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Her fingers brushed against its surface, and an immediate surge of energy coursed through her body. Her heart raced as vivid images flashed before her eyes. Alien landscapes, galaxies spinning in the void, and cryptic symbols she didn't understand. In those brief moments, she felt a strange connection, like she had glimpsed something from the past, a truth buried deep within Earth itself. This is not human," Emma muttered to herself, unable to shake the feeling that the relic was far more than just an artifact. It was a key to something far older and far more powerful than Earth's recorded history. As the team carefully excavated the rest of the site, they uncovered more pieces, strange devices, a large crystalline chamber, and what appeared to be a set of stone tablets covered in intricate carvings. One of the tablets depicted a humanoid figure, but with an aura of energy surrounding it, and strange cosmic symbols that looked like a language no one could read. A sense of dread settled over the group as they realized that these objects were far older than any civilization they had known. Months passed, and the pieces of the puzzle slowly came together. Hidden beneath Earth's surface, in the very core of the planet, lay the remnants of an ancient civilization, one that predated modern humanity by thousands of years. But there was something even more startling. The artifacts weren't just relics. They were part of a larger, complex network of devices embedded throughout the planet. The more the team studied them, the more they realized that these objects held incredible potential, a technology that could tap into the very fabric of space and time. The artifacts were more than tools or relics. They were conduits to a cosmic power. It was clear now that humanity's true origins had been hidden from them. An ancient race, once tasked with guarding the galaxy, had been erased from history. The artifacts were a legacy, a reminder of a time when humanity was not just an insignificant species on a small planet, but an integral part of the cosmic order. But with the discovery came a dangerous truth. These artifacts weren't simply relics of the past. They were weapons. And someone, or something, would stop at nothing to ensure that humanity never unlocked their full power. Hook. As the pieces of humanity's forgotten history fall into place, Emma and her team begin to realize they've unearthed something far more dangerous than they anticipated. They've uncovered a cosmic legacy that could either save or destroy them all. And they're not the only ones who know it. The news from Earth spread quickly through the stars, though it was the Galactic Council's emergency session that truly set the universe into motion. Tensions among the council members were palpable as they gathered in the massive chambers, a dome-shaped structure carved from a hollowed-out moon, orbiting a gas giant. This assembly of species from across the galaxy, each with their own advanced technologies and ideologies, was meant to ensure peace, unity, and control of the galaxy. But as whispers of humanity's discovery spread, the delicate balance was quickly tipping toward chaos. Naxri, the ancient Zorath leader, paced restlessly before the council. His eyes, glowing with an unsettling cold light, bore down on the representatives of the other races. The Zorath had long remained neutral in galactic affairs, observing quietly, calculating the rise and fall of civilizations. But this was different. What had been dismissed as a rogue signal from an insignificant species was now a dangerous reality. Humanity had stumbled upon something monumental, something that could destabilize everything. The transmission from Earth was not a fluke, Naxri said, his voice like the creak of distant stars. The humans have unearthed the key to an ancient power. We must stop them before they unlock it completely. The council room fell into an uneasy silence. The Cranari, an insectoid race known for their vast intelligence, had long believed that the galaxy's power structure was based on a careful hierarchy, one that ensured their dominance. They had looked at Earth as a fledgling race, of no consequence in the grander scheme of things. Yet now, they were forced to reconsider. Are we certain this power, this so-called cosmic force, is a threat? Asked the Tsai, a reptilian species with a long history of survival. Their scales glinted in the dim light, their eyes narrow and calculating. Perhaps we should leave them to their primitive ways. Naxri's eyes narrowed. If the humans access even a fraction of what they've uncovered, they will have the power to reshape the galaxy. And they will not hesitate to use it. We underestimated them once. We will not make that mistake again. The tension in the room escalated. The leaders of the Xendari, a peaceful race of energy-based beings, had always advocated for cooperation and understanding. However, even they couldn't ignore the reality that humanity's newfound abilities could tip the balance of power in ways they couldn't predict or control. Some saw it as an opportunity, a chance to ally with humanity and secure a powerful new friend in the galaxy. But others feared what might happen if humanity chose a different path. The council was divided, and as discussions turned to heated arguments, a sense of dread began to settle. Those who had once viewed Earth with indifference now feared it, and those who had hoped to remain neutral realized that the time to act was fast approaching. Naxri finally silenced the room with a single, sharp gesture. "We cannot afford to wait and watch. The humans will either become a powerful ally, or they will be a force of destruction. We must take action now." Behind closed doors, factions began to form. Some wanted to destroy Earth's artifacts, to silence the humans before they could tap into their newfound abilities. Others suggested manipulation, subtle influence, guiding humanity toward their own purposes, and a smaller, more radical faction of the Council saw a dangerous opportunity. If humanity could truly harness the cosmic power, they might be able to dominate the galaxy. The fate of the galaxy now rested on humanity's shoulders. But on Earth, none of this was known. The humans were still grappling with the knowledge of their ancient origins, blissfully unaware that the eyes of the universe were upon them, waiting for them to take their first steps toward either salvation or destruction. Hook. The Galactic Council is paralyzed by fear and division, each faction desperate to either control or destroy humanity's emerging power. But what no one knows is that humanity is on the verge of awakening an unstoppable force, and nothing in the galaxy may ever be the same again. As the dust settled from the initial discovery of the artifacts, the world's leaders scrambled to grasp the implications. Humanity had always seen itself as a fledgling species in the vast cosmos, striving to survive, adapt, and thrive on a small, relatively insignificant planet. But now, the artifacts unearthed in the deep caverns beneath Earth were whispering a truth that none of them were prepared to face. Dr. Emma Carter's team had begun to unravel the secrets hidden within the artifacts, but they quickly realized they had only scratched the surface. The relics were far more than historical artifacts. They were intricate, highly advanced devices that resonated with energy that had been dormant for millennia. The more they studied the artifacts, the more they noticed a strange phenomenon occurring around the globe, a gradual but unmistakable change in certain individuals. It was subtle at first, an increase in intelligence, brief flashes of uncanny insight, and moments of heightened awareness. It started with a child in a small village on the outskirts of the European Federation. 9-year-old Avamara was playing outside when the first signs appeared. She found herself able to predict the movements of birds overhead before they even took flight. A few days later, her ability to read emotions became almost superhuman. She could sense the underlying thoughts of the people around her, reading them like open books. When she touched a stone in her garden, she felt a strange surge of energy coursing through her veins, her body alight with a sensation that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Across the globe, similar occurrences began to unfold. People, initially unaware of the powers awakening within them, began to exhibit strange talents. A mathematician in Tokyo could solve complex equations in mere seconds, his mind computing solutions at an unimaginable rate. A former soldier in the deserts of Africa suddenly felt the ability to predict an opponent's next move in combat with alarming precision. In Brazil, a woman named Clara became capable of manipulating water, shaping it with a mere thought. At first, the scientific community dismissed these phenomena as flukes, human brains simply adapting in extraordinary ways to new surroundings. But when these abilities became more widespread, something more profound became undeniable. Humanity was evolving, not in the slow, gradual manner they had always known, but in a quantum leap, as though their very genetic makeup was being rewritten. The global government agencies convened in panic. News outlets began to report on mysterious outbreaks of psychic powers or strange, unexplained incidents, but the truth was more unsettling. These individuals were not merely exhibiting new skills. They were tapping into something ancient, something their species had buried deep within their DNA. And that something was awakening, sending ripples through the very fabric of human existence. Dr. Carter and her team found themselves at the center of a rapidly growing storm. The artifacts they had uncovered were beginning to hum, vibrating with a frequency that only a select few could sense. As the energy from the artifacts intensified, it seemed to be guiding these humans, those who had come into contact with the relics and those who had not, toward something greater. A singular purpose, as if the universe itself was nudging them toward a destiny they were not ready for. Meanwhile, the world's governments scrambled to contain the news. Military officials and intelligence agencies began quietly hunting down those who displayed these abilities, trying to control the situation before panic spread. But it was already too late. The awakening was underway, and no one could stop it. The first glimpse of humanity's potential was not just a gift. It was a call to something far bigger than anyone had imagined. The world had changed overnight, and it would never be the same again. As humanity's powers began to manifest in increasingly unpredictable ways, it quickly became clear to those observing from the shadows that the situation was spiraling out of control. What had once seemed like a curious anomaly was now a full-blown crisis, one that could no longer be ignored. The Galactic Council, still locked in internal strife over how to deal with Earth's awakening power, had failed to act swiftly. But the rogue alien faction, known as the Terath, a group of dissenters from the Council, wasted no time in pursuing their own agenda. The Terath had long harbored their own secret interests in humanity, intrigued by the ancient technology buried on Earth. Unlike the Galactic Council, which sought to maintain the established order, the Terath were opportunistic, seeing humanity's rising power as a potential tool for their own dominance. For years, they had infiltrated various galactic governments, seeking ways to exploit the situation for their gain. Now, they saw their moment to strike. Their first move was subtle, yet effective. Using covert technology that bypassed Earth's surveillance systems, a small fleet of Terath ships entered Earth's atmosphere undetected, landing on the remote islands of the Pacific Ocean. They targeted key locations where the artifacts had been discovered, hoping to seize them before humanity could fully unlock their potential. They had studied Earth's sudden surge of power, and they knew that these relics were the key to controlling the flow of energy. Under the cover of night, Terath operatives infiltrated the archaeological sites, taking advantage of Earth's unpreparedness. They used their advanced cloaking technology to remain hidden from the prying eyes of human forces, quickly overpowering the small security teams that had been assigned to guard the sites. They set to work, extracting the artifacts with precision, carefully removing them from their resting places. But as the operation unfolded, the unexpected happened. One of the Terath, a skilled operative named Virax, attempted to manipulate one of the ancient relics. The artifact hummed to life, its power flaring with energy. Virax, unfamiliar with the intricacies of humanity's latent connection to the artifacts, was unprepared for the overwhelming surge of force. The result was catastrophic. The artifact exploded with a shockwave of energy that sent ripples through the surrounding area, knocking out communications and causing seismic disturbances across the island. In that moment, the balance of power began to shift. The Terath were caught off guard by the potency of the artifacts, and their plan was thrown into disarray. But their presence had not gone unnoticed. The first signs of human resistance began to form as those who had been touched by the relics, who had begun to unlock their own latent abilities, felt the disturbance. In an instant, humans with newfound powers rushed toward the site, drawn by the energy radiating from the chaos. A small team of military operatives, augmented with the growing number of individuals who had begun to tap into their psychic or elemental abilities, descended on the scene to confront the alien invaders. Despite the Terath's superior technology, they were unprepared for the raw, untamed force of the humans they were now facing. The humans, in their confusion, attacked with a wild, untapped fury, their abilities unpredictable but devastating. One soldier, a former combat instructor named Jason Shaw, was able to foresee the Terath's movements with unnerving accuracy, dodging their attacks before they even fired. A civilian named Elena, who had been drawn to the site after a strange vision, suddenly found herself able to manipulate the electromagnetic field around her, causing the Terath weapons to short-circuit mid-fire. The battle that ensued was chaotic and violent. The Terath, for the first time in ages, found themselves facing an enemy that didn't follow the rules, an enemy whose powers they couldn't predict or control. While the Xerath fought to secure the artifacts and escape, the humans, for the first time, realized they were no longer powerless. The operation, intended to be a swift strike against Earth's newfound abilities, had turned into a fiasco. The Xerath retreat, but not without leaving a dangerous trail behind them. Earth was now a target. The attack was a wake-up call for the Galactic Council, and while many still hesitated, some factions within the Council began to see the rogue Xerath's actions as the first signs of a deeper galactic conflict. Humanity's awakening had set off a chain reaction, and now the universe was watching, waiting to see if humanity would rise to its destiny or be crushed under the weight of forces they didn't understand. The battle, however, was only just beginning. The events of the Pacific Islands attack rippled across the globe, stirring fear and disbelief in equal measure. The news was broadcast worldwide, with images of strange, glowing relics and alien forces clashing against the newly awakened humans. What had begun as an isolated phenomenon had now spread across every corner of Earth. The world's governments were in turmoil, scrambling to react. But amidst the chaos, one crucial truth became evident. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. In the aftermath of the assault, the United Earth Coalition, a conglomerate of Earth's leading governments and military forces, began to take action. The attack on the archaeological sites had exposed just how vulnerable humanity was to the wider galaxy's power struggles. Despite the Xerath's retreat, the damage was done. The truth was undeniable. There were powerful factions in the galaxy who had their eyes set on Earth, and they would stop at nothing to claim its newfound potential. But humanity's response wasn't what anyone expected. At first, the global leaders sought to consolidate control over the newly emerging powers, hoping to use them as leverage in the coming galactic conflicts. But as more and more humans began to awaken to their own abilities, powers that ranged from telekinesis and telepathy to elemental control and heightened reflexes, it became clear that Earth's response would not be dictated by any one government or leader. The world's awakening wasn't about power or control. It was a collective surge, a movement that transcended borders and alliances. Earth was becoming something new, something that no one could predict. In the face of this new reality, an unlikely alliance began to form. Dr. Emma Carter, still at the heart of the archaeological discoveries, was contacted by a representative from the Xerath, one of the galaxy's most ancient and secretive races. The Xerath, unlike the Xerath or other more aggressive factions, understood the danger that humanity posed, and more importantly, they recognized the dormant potential within the human species. Naxri, the Xerath leader, had observed humanity for centuries, carefully watching the evolution of Earth's people. It was the Xerath who had originally hidden the artifacts, knowing that one day humanity would be ready to wield them. Now, they saw that time had come. But unlike the more exploitative factions, the Xerath were not interested in manipulating humanity for their own gain. Instead, they offered their knowledge and wisdom, seeking to guide humanity's awakening, to help them unlock the true potential hidden within their DNA. However, they made it clear that this guidance came at a price. The Xerath demanded humanity's alliance in the coming conflict, a conflict that, they warned, would determine the fate of the galaxy itself. Emma, hesitant but intrigued, knew that she had no choice but to accept the Xerath's help. The alternative, facing the growing threats alone, was too dangerous. She began to work closely with the Xerath's emissaries, learning about the deeper history of the galaxy, the forces at play, and the ancient guardians who had once protected the galaxy. But as the Xerath offered their knowledge, others watched from the shadows. The Xerath, far from retreating, were regrouping, learning from their previous missteps. The rogue faction had been damaged, but they were far from defeated. And unbeknownst to Emma and the rest of humanity, another player in the galactic chessboard was also moving into position, a race of energy-based beings known as the Draconis. Their interest in humanity's awakening was more than just curiosity. It was a calculated desire to either harness humanity's power or extinguish it entirely. The stage was set. Earth, now at the center of a galaxy on the brink of war, would have to decide where its loyalties lay. With the Zorath offering their guidance, the humans would have to choose whether they would rise to their new role as the galaxy's protectors or become pawns in a conflict too vast for them to fully comprehend. In the days following, Emma and her team began to train a select group of individuals, those who had awakened to their new powers, to understand and control their abilities. Their first task would be to harness the power of the artifacts and use it to defend against the galactic forces that were gathering on the edges of human space. But even as they prepared, they knew that the real test had yet to come. The galaxy was about to witness humanity's true potential, and the choices Earth made in the coming days would shape the future of the cause. The alliance between humanity and the Zorath was fragile at best. While Emma Carter and her team worked tirelessly to decode the ancient artifacts and teach humanity how to harness their newfound powers, the world outside was descending into chaos. As news of the galactic powers eyeing Earth spread, some countries rallied behind the idea of using these powers as weapons, eager to defend their nations at any cost. Others, however, feared that embracing these abilities would make them targets, drawing even greater attention from hostile alien factions. Tensions among Earth's governments were reaching a boiling point, making it all the more difficult for the Zorath to offer their guidance effectively. Despite the turmoil on Earth, the Zorath's support was invaluable. They shared with Emma the true nature of the artifacts, tools of unimaginable power capable of manipulating energy, time, and space itself. The Zorath explained that humanity's awakening was no accident. It was part of an ancient prophecy, a cycle that had played out throughout the galaxy in different forms. The first step in this cycle was always the same. The species would discover the relics, unlocking their latent potential. The second step was the rise of a great conflict, often precipitated by those who feared the power humanity could wield. And the final step, according to the prophecy, was the emergence of a champion. Someone or something that could unite the galaxy, using the power of the awakened species to bring balance. But the Zorath made it clear that this prophecy had never been fulfilled, not once in their long history. Every species that had reached this point had been divided and ultimately destroyed by the galactic conflicts that followed. The odds were stacked against humanity, but the Zorath still believed there was a chance for Earth to break the cycle. Meanwhile, the Zorath were regrouping, their defeat in the Pacific Islands attack fueling their rage. They had learned from their mistakes and were not going to let humanity slip through their grasp again. With newfound strategies and reinforcements, they launched a full-scale assault on key Earth cities. Their ships, sleek and deadly, appeared without warning over major population centers, their weapons unleashing devastating energy blasts that tore through buildings and sent millions of people into hiding. The first major battle took place in New York City, where the Zorath attacked with overwhelming force. But what the invaders hadn't counted on was the human resistance, those who had unlocked their abilities, now banding together to defend their home. A group of civilians, led by former soldier Jason Shaw, used their newfound powers to organize a counterattack. Jason, with his enhanced reflexes and ability to predict movements, became the strategic leader. Belina, the woman with control over water, joined forces with others like Ava Morrow, whose ability to sense emotions and anticipate actions allowed her to coordinate the group's movements with uncanny precision. For the first time, humanity fought back, not with conventional weapons, but with the untamed forces awakened within them. The Zorath, initially confident in their superiority, were caught off guard by the coordinated resistance. As the battle raged on, Emma, working alongside the Zorath, initiated the activation of the ancient artifacts to bolster humanity's defenses. The energy they unleashed was nothing short of catastrophic, shifting the very ground beneath the invaders' feet. However, even as humanity made progress, it was clear that the Zorath were only one part of a larger galactic struggle. As the battle intensified, other factions began to reveal themselves. The Draconis, the energy-based beings who had been watching from the shadows, suddenly appeared in orbit, their presence sending shockwaves through Earth's communications network. They had decided that humanity was a threat that could not be ignored, and they prepared to take their own measures to either control or eliminate the species entirely. Emma, Jason, and the other leaders knew that the time had come. Humanity was not just defending itself. It was now at the center of a cosmic battle. Earth's survival was no longer a matter of national defense. It was a matter of galactic consequence. As the skies above Earth darkened with the looming presence of these alien forces, the fight for the planet's future was about to enter its most dangerous phase. Humanity had unlocked its potential, but with that power came the responsibility to face down the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. The choices made in these coming days would determine whether Earth would rise as a beacon of hope or fall as another casualty in the endless war for dominance among the stars. As Earth plunged deeper into the chaos of intergalactic conflict, the true scope of humanity's potential began to take shape. The Serath were relentless, their armies pouring in from hidden corners of the galaxy, their technology far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered before. The Draconis, enigmatic and almost incomprehensible, circled the planet like a storm of energy, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Yet, in the face of these overwhelming odds, something remarkable was happening. Humanity was no longer just a species struggling to survive. It was becoming a force in its own right. The artifacts, once merely mysterious relics, had become the key to humanity's evolution. As more individuals unlocked their powers, the lines between what it meant to be human and what it meant to be something more began to blur. These new cosmic defenders, as the media began calling them, were not just humans wielding strange abilities. They were humanity's answer to the galactic powers that sought to destroy them. The conflict, once seen as a battle for survival, now became a war of ideologies. The old powers of the galaxy, set in their ways and unwilling to change, versus the uncharted force that humanity represented. Dr. Emma Carter, who had once been a scientist merely observing these transformations, now stood at the forefront of Earth's resistance. Working with the Zorath, she had unlocked deeper secrets within the artifacts, revealing their true purpose, not as mere weapons, but as conduits for a universal energy that could unite or destroy entire civilizations. It was a power that came with responsibility, and she knew that humanity was facing a pivotal moment. Would they use this energy to preserve peace, or would they become just another destructive force in the galaxy? In the midst of this uncertainty, the human leaders made a bold decision. They reached out to the Zorath, the Chronari, and even the Draconis, attempting to broker a fragile alliance. If they could convince the galaxy's other factions that humanity was a force for peace, not conquest, they might have a chance. But there was a risk. Some factions, especially the Exarath, would never be convinced. And the Draconis, enigmatic as they were, seemed to have their own agenda, one that was as mysterious as their energy-based forms. Meanwhile, the human resistance continued to grow. Jason Shaw, once a soldier trained for conventional warfare, now stood as one of Earth's greatest leaders, wielding his powers alongside those of others like Alina, Ava, and Clara. Each of them had their own unique abilities, powers that defied logic and physics, powers that were now a part of the fabric of Earth's defense. The world was no longer just a planet with a single form of warfare. It had become a battleground of powers, ideas, and destinies. The final confrontation took place in orbit, as the forces of the Tereth, Draconis, and Zorath converged on Earth. The fate of humanity would be decided in the heart of space itself. The cosmic defenders, joined by the Zorath, and a small faction of sympathetic galactic forces, mounted a bold offensive. The artifacts, now fully activated, sent waves of energy through the cosmos, destabilizing the battlefield and shifting the tide in humanity's favor. It was an unprecedented display of power, an all-or-nothing effort that could either annihilate Earth or protect it forever. In the midst of the final battle, Emma made the ultimate choice. Instead of using the artifacts to destroy her enemies, she used them to channel the raw energy of the universe into a force of unity. With the collective strength of humanity, the Zoreth, and the few remaining allies, Emma managed to create a massive pulse of energy that enveloped the battlefield, not in destruction, but in peace. The pulse resonated across the galaxy, a signal that humanity was not a threat to the galaxy, but a potential force for change. The Zoreth, unable to counter the power of the united human forces, were driven back, their ambitions thwarted. The Draconis, sensing the shift in the cosmic balance, withdrew into the shadows, their motives unclear. And the Zoreth, having watched the events unfold, saw the fulfillment of the prophecy. A new champion had risen, one who had the power to unite the galaxy, not through war, but through understanding and cooperation. As the battle came to an end, Earth stood victorious. But it wasn't just a victory over alien invaders. It was the birth of a new era for humanity. No longer a fledgling species in the vast cosmos, Earth had become a symbol of hope, a beacon for other worlds seeking peace. The cosmic defenders were not just warriors. They were ambassadors, charged with ensuring that humanity's power would be used not to dominate, but to protect. The universe, once divided, now looked toward Earth with a new sense of awe and respect. Humanity, in all its imperfection, had proven that even the most unlikely species could rise to greatness. And with the artifacts safely in their hands, Earth's future was now in its own hands, one where the balance of power would no longer be dictated by the old galactic orders, but by a new force, a force of unity and hope. The galaxy had learned the shocking truth about humanity's power, and the universe would never be the same again.